90% of people who sit the UCAT aren't going to get a score good enough for medicine. So, how do you make sure you're in the top 10%? That's what we're answering today. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Exy and I'm a second year medical student at Monash University. Today's video is going to be about 3 key tips to help you study for the UCAT. Now, before we jump into today's video, I want to tell you guys a story about Ray. Ray is a year 12 student, like many of you guys, who is interested in studying medicine. He's super dedicated to his study and he really wants to do well. In the summer holidays, Ray hears about this test called the UCAT from his friends. Interested, he looks into it and realizes that it's something that he needs to do well in to get into medicine. Upon doing more research, looking up on the internet, reading articles, he realizes that he probably should start his preparation soon. But he thinks to himself, oh, I've got school starting up soon, so maybe I should wait until the term 1 holidays. So he decides to wait until the term 1 holidays. Term 1 flies by and Ray soon finds himself with a huge chunk of free time, even including his holiday homework. Ray thinks to himself, like I'm sure many of us have thought, I've done a lot of hard work, I deserve a break, I'm going to take a week off and then start preparing for the UCAT. 1 week rolls by, then it becomes 2, and before he knows it, Ray is heading into term 2. So Ray stops and thinks to himself, that's alright, I'm just going to wait until I'm in the flow of things. So you can probably tell where this is going. Ray ends up focusing on all his SACs and does pretty well on his VC throughout term 2. But because of not thinking of the UCAT, he's ended up only having 2 weeks left to prepare for the UCAT. On top of that, he has absolutely no idea where to start. Like anyone in that position, he frantically Googles as much resources as he can off the internet and tries to find tutors, resources, and anything that can help him. Ultimately, because he didn't know how to use his time well, he ended up spamming practice questions, and as a result, whilst he improved, he didn't get a score nearly as good enough to get him into medicine. So, what can we learn from Ray? Well, there's 3 key things that we can take from Ray's method of preparation, reverse it, and in turn get ourselves a good UCAT score. Now, these 3 key tips are what I'm going to call micro tips, meaning they're not overall tips that are going to help you preparation across a 6-month journey. Instead, they're targeted towards your individual study sessions. And that leads me into my first one. Keep your study sessions short and sharp at the start and long and extended towards the end. Now, I think that splitting your practice up into these 2 methods is the best way of tackling your UCAT. And the reason why is keeping it short and sharp at the start will help you develop UCAT practice as a habit. And this actually leads into a later tip that I'll talk about with consistency. But being able to do a little bit of UCAT every single day will mean that you prevent burnout. And ultimately, doing 15 minutes at a time is much easier than sitting down and doing a 2-hour full mock exam. So at the start, what I'd highly recommend is doing everything in 15-minute times trials. Do a 15-minute set of decision-making times, take a 5-minute break, do a 15-minute set of QR, take a 5-minute break, etc. Do that until you're confident with your skills. Now, as your exam rolls by, and that is maybe the month or 2 up to your exam, that's when you want to start thinking about more long and extended practice sessions. The main reason behind that is quite obvious. The exam is 2 hours long and you don't get any real breaks, which means you need to get used to the duration and get used to the fatigue that you're going to endure in the exam. So as you roll towards your exam, maybe go ahead and try some more full mock exams or full mini mock exams, or maybe even a half an hour time drill. All of that is going to make you become more used to the timing and more used to the stamina that you need to be able to do well over the entire exam. And this is important because whilst a lot of people can do really well on maybe an abstract reasoning mini mock by itself, when you have to do an abstract reasoning mini mock after an hour and a half of other subtests, it becomes extremely difficult to keep your focus. So the best way you can do that is by doing long and extended sessions. The second key tip is to keep it consistent. Now, recently I've been reading this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and there's a lot of really good stuff that's outlined in that book, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. But one key thing is that 1% improvement every day is much better than 1% unimprovement every day. Now, that sounds really obvious, but if we apply this to UCAT practice, if you're able to improve your score by 10 points every single week, over a good 30 weeks of practice, you're going to improve your score by over 300, which might be the difference from getting a mediocre score to a good score. Now, what I mean by keep it consistent is doing a tiny bit of UCAT practice every day. What I can tell you guys straight up off the bat is that doing 5 minutes every day is much better than doing 1 hour at the end of every 2 weeks. And whilst you're doing roughly the same amount of questions, the fact that you're doing 5 minutes every day will keep your mind active and sort of interrupt that forgetting curve in terms of the skills that you're picking up as you go along. So what I recommend is to start now and keep it consistent. Even if you find it hard to sit down for 2 hours and do a full solid hour of UCAT practice, sit down for 5 minutes. Do a couple of questions here, do a couple of questions there. Do that every single day at a set time, maybe when you're in a set mental state. You'll notice that over time, you're going to get used to doing that UCAT practice every day, and slowly, it's going to become a habit. Ultimately, it's these habits that allow us to score a 3,200 plus, because at that point, you're not even thinking about doing the UCAT as laborious anymore or as a chore. It sort of comes naturally. It's the same reason you don't really have to wake up and think to yourself, oh, I have to brush my teeth, because you're just so used to it that it's become a natural part of your day. You can't go without it. That's what you should make your UCAT practice. The final tip is to keep it timed. Now, a lot of students, myself included, made the mistake of doing questions purely untimed. But you got to keep in mind, the only element that makes the UCAT difficult is the time. If we all had 10 hours to do the UCAT, I have no doubt people would be scoring 900s left, right, and center. So the only way to counteract that is to do the opposite and make sure your practice is only timed. Now again, as I said before, this doesn't have to strictly be half an hour or 2 hours at a time. It can be as short as 5 to 15 minutes at the start, although you want to get into longer sets at the end. Now, in general, I would say the ratio between untimed to timed questions should be around a 20 to 80 ratio, meaning 20% of your time should be spent on untimed questions, whereas 80% of the time should be spent on your timed questions. Ultimately, that's what's going to give you the greatest amount of results. If you find it hard to do timed questions at the start as well, don't feel pressured into it. Do use untimed questions, get used to it, get a feel of what the questions are like before doing timed questions. I promise you, if you can apply these 3 tips to your practice, your scores are going to skyrocket and you're going to see massive results over a 6-month span. And that's it. It sounds really simple, but a lot of people just aren't able to apply this, and as a result, they're not able to get a score that they're happy with. That's all for today's video. Make sure to subscribe and like for more future UCAT videos, as well as general VC and study videos, which I will be uploading soon. Sorry I haven't been uploading as much. I've been very, very busy, but I do want to make it more consistent, so I will be trying to do that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.